Welcome to the first episode of Feedback Friday. Today's artist is Yui June. He's one of my old friends, which I made music with for like 10 years ago, and he's an amazing singer and now also producer. He has sent me 3 tunes, which I'm gonna give feedback on. I'm gonna highlight his best features. Then I will point out what I would have done differently if it was my tunes. And then in the end of the video, I will make a list of topics that I would go and investigate to simply avoid his habits, his routines, because I think breaking our habits is the entrance to creativity and also to make it more fun to make music. This is the first episode, and I'm actually really scared about how this is going to be and how I'm gonna do this. So if you're, while watching this, comes up with some suggestions to something that you think I should do differently or something that you would wish I did, then please let me know in the comments. And if you like the music, then go and find Yui June on Facebook. I will post a link in the description and like him because he really deserves it. This is the first episode and he really don't know what he has signed up for. And I think that's kind of brave. But again, it's only sharing our music, and what's the worst thing that can happen? A big disclaimer. I don't think I have the right answers. I simply say what I interpretate. When I suggest something, I want the artist to try it out, not because it's the right suggestion, but because I would like them to try something else. Maybe they will like it, or most likely they will try it out and get inspired to do something third. These are only my suggestions, and you are so welcome to disagree. And I can let you in on a secret. Everything that I'm gonna talk about is subjects that I'm working on myself. So this is how I interpret the music because this is what I'm working with myself. Let's start and see where it leads us. I will play his tunes and give him feedback, and that's kind of it. So the first tune is called Lose Control, and I will play it just like he sent it to me.
Like music that makes you forget wherever you came from. It's here you belong. We're here to celebrate you. Come and join in too. We're here to celebrate you. Come and join in too. Time to forget your worries, to forget your worries. Oh. This is the time to forget your sorry, for all the things that you didn't do, for all the things that, for all the things that you've been through. Oh, lose control and let yourself unwind. You've been taken over by a different state of mind.
So this is the tune, and I really like it. So the first thing that I would highlight is the bass figure, which I really like. Let's find it. It's kind of a signature for this song, I think. And I really think that that's a really great accomplishment. I also like the synth playing here. Ding, ding, ding. Even though I think that I will make them a bit shorter to really like emphasize the energy that they carry. I really like that there are a lot of space, room in his music. So when he is starting to sing, we can really concentrate on his voice because the spectrum is not full of sound all the time. There's plenty of air. I changed a few things because I thought it was very necessary. So this is his version. It's kind of like heavy. Maybe this is what he is trying to accomplish. But how I did it was like this. So I kind of changed the time on the drums. So I moved them 13 milliseconds forward. And then in the beat, he had like this snare drum. Which kind of made the beat dragging a bit. So I simply just muted this. Let's try to hear with and without. And without. Now it's like more fresh. And then another thing that I have done on all of his drums. I have added Compressor, which is a 10 compressor, a VCA, with the settings Attack 10, Release 0.1. And simply just set it as I liked it, adjusting the threshold only. Let's try to listen with and without. It just intensifies it, gives it more energy. With, without. So it gives it the energy, it makes it kick more, which I really miss. Then the other thing is, I really love the bass and what it is playing, but for me it feels like he wanted it to be a real bass player playing it. And since he didn't have a bass player to play it, then he just did the next best thing, and that was to find a electric bass sound and made it play it. And for me, sound is so important. So trying to emulate something is like trying to copy anything. You will only get like 90% as good as the other thing. And for me, having something that's 90% as good is never good enough. So I would either make another sound play it, which doesn't try to emulate something else, or I would overdo that it's a MIDI sound and then find a really bad MIDI sound so it doesn't sound like you're trying to hide the fact that it isn't a bass player playing it, or I would have a bass player playing it. But I think the two first options are the most exciting options because it's too easy to just find a bass player. Another thing is the synthesizers. I think some of the sounds are very good. For example, these. But these I don't really like. They simply miss some life, some character, something. I feel like you need to bring some life into them. One way you can do is to simply control the cutoff filter. So for example, like this. Now we gave it some character, some performance, something. It just wasn't a static thing that just like was all over the place. Now it got some movement, I think is the right word. Every time you can give movement or edit automation, do it, because every time you automate something, then you simply put more of your character into your tune, and that is the most important thing that you can give a tune. But simply by changing the filter cutoff, I actually think that we gave the start. And maybe simply turn down the filter cutoff in this part to make even more space for the vocal. And also to make it more alive. But maybe I will also just mute it sometimes. And again, your singing is just amazing. I really love how you added the different layers of octaves of your singing. What I would have done differently is that I would make different parts and try to surprise myself. In your melodies, I can kind of guess what is happening. And for me, that's maybe a result of that you started with 2 notes and then it was like, oh, then it's going to be like this and this and this. And for me, I want to experience something new when I listen to music. When it's Radiohead, when it's Pharrell Williams, when it's everything. And always when there's music I really like, then it's because there is something new. And it's not because I'm a musician, but it's simply because I want to experience something new. And how can you do that in this tune? I tried to make an example where I simply just added a new part. A part that I wouldn't have thought of coming. Let's try to listen. It's just the fact that something new is happening that I didn't expect, which just makes my ears awake. And I also start to listen more to the melody now when the chords are changing. And then when we come back, I get the joy of getting back to something I know. So by changing something, we simply make our ears wake by doing something that we even didn't expect ourselves. Another thing that I would try out if it was my song was to make 3 different melodies. Should I thought so you can keep the rhythms, but I would like to hear how it would sound if you added some new notes to the melody. And the worst thing that can happen is that you like it better, or that you figure out that the way that you started doing it was the absolute best way. And for me, just figuring out that what I did is the absolute correct way to do it actually makes the listener experience better. Because when I post my music to the public with this feeling of I've really done my best, then they will receive it in the same way and really have that feeling when they're listening to it. Another thing you could do with the synthesizers is to sidechain it, because I want to give it some more movement, character, texture. So I simply sidechain the whole synth group bus with the bass drum. So now they're kind of reacting to each other, which makes it sound more alive. And then the last trick I did was to add the tan VCA compressor to the main bus with the exactly same settings ratio at 4, attack at 10, release at 0.1, and adjust threshold for your liking. With I just think it sounds more energetic. Without. This is also what you call glue compressor. The acoustic Catan is free, so and it works with all DAWs. That makes you forget wherever you came from. It's here you belong. Let's move on to the next tune. The next tune is called Only You. Get me out of this place right now, 'cause I know I don't fit in, I never will.
understand. You don't need to tell me anything. I feel your sadness. I don't want to waste our time away ever again. You are the only one I need. You can make me not lonely. You can believe me off. Heartache. That is just you and me. Darling, ooh, I'm the only one I need. You can make me not lonely. You can believe me off. Heartache. That is just you and me. You are my spring, my spring. You are my fall, and I feel you leave a space in my heart. Only one I need. You can make me not lonely. You can believe me off. Heartache. That is just you and me. Darling, ooh, I'm the only one I need. You can make me not lonely. You can believe me off. Heartache. That is just you and me. Darling, ooh, I'm the only one I need. You can make me not lonely. You can believe me off. Heartache. There is just you and me, darling.
Okay, so I think this is a killer song with a killer beat and vocal performance. One thing I really love is when he's letting go of control and just sings because he really feels like singing. He's an amazing singer, and when he just lets go, it's just, I get to feel who he is, and that's what the music is about, I think. So for example, here in the end, where he just improvises, it sounds like...
There is just you and me, darling.
I just feel like I get to know him, because this is just, when he doesn't think, then it sounds like this, and this is how he is. I wrote in my notes, I prefer listening to how he actually is than how you think he is. Because a lot of times we would like to be perfect, and we try to edit it, everything that we do, so it doesn't like sound weird or anything wrong, or... But this is just...
There is just you and me.
You would never be able to plan something like this. This can only come naturally without thinking about it. And this is one of the main things that I would like to hear more from Louis. I really love the beat. The drums are killer, and I kind of a bit jealous that I don't know how to make such drums. But again, I added 10 with the exact same settings. Attack 10, release 0.1, this time ratio only 2. I actually think it's a mistake, but it sounds really good, so I don't want to change it. And then just adjust threshold. Let's try to listen to his. The only thing that I added was the compressor. And for me, it's just like... Simply just added some tan compressor. Another thing that really makes this extremely good is the bass melody again. And I would say that even though this isn't a real bass player, I don't think so at least, then the groove is so great, so I don't really think about it that much. And still, I would prefer it to be a real bass player or something else that wasn't trying to emulate a real bass player. The bass line is really, really, really awesome. So, yes, I really like that. One of my suggestions is to mute the drums. So here is the beginning without drums.
Get me
Now I just like it gets fragile.
This place right now, 'cause I know I don't fit in and never will.
It's also just such a beautiful lyrics. And the lyrics is fragile and everything is fragile. Another thing that I will also do while I was just listening to it now is to add a filter on the piano to make it more alive again. I think that every time you automate something, then it just adds your character. So if we start like this.
Get me out of this place.
Now my ears just starts to focus on it.
'Cause I know
and I start to like really get into the song.
Fit in and never will.
So that's just a really easy way to add your character again. And I think that every time you have something which is kind of a loop, something that is repeating itself, you need to do something to break that loop feeling, because I really get tired of listening to the same thing being played over and over again the exactly same way. So you every time this happens, then do something, and simply messing with the filters often does the job. And another place where I muted the drums, in the breakdown, remove the drums completely. It just gives some really nice bass. And then you can add them again when the nice beats comes in. And in this part I feel like the piano could be more smooth and delicious, but that's only a matter of taste. But I really like that there is a new part. And this thing is just cruel in the best way. It's like it's so energetic. I can really feel that he has something on his heart that he wants to tell. And then we turn on the drums again. And then it comes like, oh, thank you, finally. And this pleasant surprise. And another thing that I really, really, really love is the octave guitar sound, which really sounds ugly in the most beautiful way. And what I did was to make them sound more awesome, I think, was to simply just pan them out to each side to make more room. The way that Louis did it was just to mono both, and it sounds like this. And I think that they are so extremely nice, so I want them to have more space. So in this way I think that they get allowed to simply do more. Also his ooh, it's just like when he does that, I feel him, and that's the best thing that I can ever experience with any artists. And in general, I really like the sound of the piano. It sounds like he has done something about it, tried different sounds and found this kind of old vintage kind of sound. And I really also love the rhythm. It's not a rhythm that I've heard a million times before, and It just feels that he spent the energy to actually make it something special. But what I would like is that instead of it's only playing that, I would like it to have some fills. For example, do something in the breaks and in between his singing. There's a lot of room, which is amazing that there is. I think that he could gain a lot by just these small details that would make it sound more like a piano player, because if it was me playing this piano part, at some point I would get bored, and then I would make maybe another top line melody, or I would maybe make another fill, or I would remove some of the hits when I felt the need to it to make it, for me, even more exciting to play. And I would love that in this version too. So basically go through all the hits, figure out what happens if I try to remove some of them. Because often it's like, there was a hit missing. So we can add attention by removing even. Because when we are repeating stuff and it's suddenly not there anymore, then our ears starts to listen even more. And another idea I got when I was biking to my studio this morning was that you could try to change the chord a bit. Now it's kind of all diatonic, but you could, instead of from major to minor, then you could replace the second chord with a major. So simply messing around with trying to make the minors major or the major minor, just to figure out how it feels. Maybe it will surprise you in a new way that you really like. And for me as the listener, I would be like, oh, a new thing that I haven't experienced before. What I'm trying to say is that I don't think that you need to be afraid of trying to play around with your harmonics. Let's listen to the third and the last track, Temporal.
I caught you doing something wild in the moment. Let it out. You've been keeping it a secret, smashed into pieces. Just get it out. Oh, you believe that you were special, 'cause you're so goddamn sentimental. 'Cause you don't see that all the people on this earth are just the same, and that's why they don't care at all. Some things in your life are just prearranged. There are just some things that you won't escape. You're so naive that you believed in that. My God, if only we could float on a Hollywood cloud, make a movie in the Cure any style. Disregard your titties and my sexual needs. I am only human, but I wish I could be something greater than temporal. Something greater than temporal. Don't be offended, no. That's not the way I meant it. I thought we could make it through this phase. You and I feel so much better. All we gotta do is fly on to another stage. Yeah, where all I got to be is pure of heart and sympathetic. Save don't break it, never fake it. Let's do it, we'll fly on to another stage. Yeah, you get off me. Just in the way I feel, baby, let's try it. My God, if only we could float on a Hollywood cloud, make a movie in the Cure any style. Disregard your titties and my sexual needs. I am only human, but I wish I could be something greater than temporal. Something greater than temporal.
Okay, so yet another great track. So the first thing I did was to add the tank compressor for the drums. And without, it just gives us some energy and makes it cut through the tune. Maybe they're a bit too loud now, but
oh, you believe that you were special.
Boom.
Cause you're so goddamn sentimental. Cause you don't see that.
And another thing I played around with that I thought was very interesting was this part, because how he sings it is really incredible and so energetic and really like, it's like he's ripping out his soul. And I love that part because I get to feel him. But again, I wanted to like exaggerate that feeling. So what I did was that I copied just this part and then I added a overdrive. And on my tracks there's already rooms, so the overdrive is both on the vocal and the room, so it does work perfect. But the idea is here, so let's listen. It gives like this even more intense feeling of something is really important. And then another thing that I noticed is we have like this bum, and the bass is saying bum. The bass is ending before the hit, so we have like a bass length that doesn't fit the rhythm, and then these hits also. I would cut the delay and the reverb on these, so it's gonna say the duck, and then extend the bass, so the bass will also say boom, duck, to really exaggerate the feeling of this energy. Instead of now it's like blah, blah, blah. So in that way, just energize everything and like make everything really intense. Another thing I really love is the intro. I really think that this is also one of the times where you have been playing around with sounds and made your own universe. When I hear this, I just like, oh, this is this song. And I really love that.
Caught you doing something wild in the moment.
I would try to leave out some snare drums hits and some bass hits and maybe make some more breaks. For example, I wrote here. Let's see.
I caught you doing something wild in the moment. Let it out. You've been keeping it a secret. Smashed it to pieces.
Make me listen more.
Let it out. Oh, you believe that you were special.
It's just like when it's missing, my ears start to like notice something, and then I get pulled into the music. I was also thinking here, after the crazy part, then we just go back to how it was normally, and again, it's like we have the top level of energy and then we have the middle, and why not make something even more below? What happens if just we mute the drums? I think if it was me, I would actually add something completely else because I'm able to. I would add something that wasn't this like boom, bum, but instead maybe make something floating, something. I'm not sure about what. But when I just go back, I kind of like, I would like to experience something else. It could be just piano chords played beautifully. 3 really, really great songs. What I would be working on if I was you. I kind of miss being surprised. I kind of miss experiencing something new. Experiencing that you have been trying to do something that you haven't done before. Right now when I listen, it's all extremely good and well. But it's not like I get these aha moments where I'm like completely like, wow. Besides when you're singing more freely. But I would really love that you, for example, played around with the chords. It's not because all the chords needs to be weird or crazy, but it's more like I want to experience that you found some chords that you thought were intriguing. Like when I make chords, I would like it to be like, oh, I've never tried this before. This is kind of a new world that just opened for me. And now I feel like most of the chords are like, wow, these work really well. But I don't get like this, wow. This is crazy. And another way that you could kind of do something different. Often your songs consist of one part, and I would like there to be kind of a counterpart, a part that kind of takes me apart from what is already happening, so that I'm like, oh, something new, and in a way that you also find exciting. Because that would simply just draw my attention to what you're doing. And then again, when I get back to the first part, I will be like listening to it with another feeling, just like coming home from a vacation. Everything is kind of a bit more new and exciting, at least for a day or two. Another way that you could make me experience something new is to either make your own instruments, make new sounds using sound design, or by using sounds that you already got in a new way. It's like there are some millions of ways of playing chords, and right now you're kind of stuck to just like wop, wum, or maybe a rhythm to them. But you could play chords with the piano in like 100 different million ways, and I would love how it sounds when you're really like trying out 100 million different ways of doing it, and then picking the one that you like the most for the song that you're working on. I really love every time you have some melodies in your basses, for example, or when you have like a synthesizer playing a melody. And you're really great at making these melodies, so I think that more is more and more is just better. So more melodies with your instruments. Spontaneity. I think when you're improvising and just doing, and it's not like this calculated thing, it just sounds amazing. And just like when you're singing out of spontaneity, I would try to have more playing of spontaneity. So simply like play your chords and just mess around or with your beats or play a solo or something. Because every time you're improvising, just reacting, we really get to feel how it feels to be you and feel who you are. And it's quite amazing to get that experience. I would work with contrast. So make your loud part even louder, make your crazy parts even crazier, and make your silent part even more silenced. So mute hits, mute instruments in different parts. Add double as many instruments in others. Add distortion, add saturation, and just don't be afraid of being a bit more crazy. All of your chords are kind of in the diatonic landscape, and I would like to hear what it would sound like if you went more on explorations. And one way you could do it is to simply swap out a minor with a major chord, or the other way around. For example, in temporal, this chord could be a major without a problem. And how that would sound would be like, it wouldn't sound weird, but it would awaken me. So it's more that you try different stuff out, and it could be just once where it played a major chord instead of a minor. I feel like you made it and then you didn't really think about it anymore. And I think what you could be thinking about is when you have like this final form, then go and explore and like, oh, what would happen if I did this? Or, oh, okay, I made this really one nice part. What would happen if I make 4 more nice parts? Because the worst thing that can really happen is that one of the other parts you like even more, or that you really, really love the first part. I would like the music in you to evolve somehow, instead of making it and then just accepting that it's how it's gonna be. You could automate more, so simply automate filters, delays, reverbs, anything. Every time you automate something, you act, you perform, and your performance is what makes your music really, really, really good. For the next songs you're writing, then I would try to start with writing maybe 8 different parts and then make a song using these 8 parts. Not because you need to use all 8, not because you even need to use 2 of them, but more because you need to be able to choose the best thing that you like. And maybe if you make 8, then you will actually feel like wanting to use more because you suddenly realize that you could do it in another way. Often we kind of stick to what we already do because our imagination simply can't imagine it any other ways. So by starting off with making 8 parts, then you're already on a new track somewhere new where you need to really, really be focused to stay on the road. And when you're that focused, then it's impossible for you not to do something really, really good. And maybe it will turn out in you making a song in a new way or in a way that you always do. But I'm sure that your extra focus will get to the listener and it will be even more awesome. And then when you have decided on making a form with some of the 8 parts, then try to make at least 4 different melodies for each part before you're settling down. Maybe again you'll realize that it's okay to have 5 different melodies, or maybe you will realize that 2 are nice, or that you simply just made a melody even greater than what you could imagine. And when I say make 4 or 5 new melodies, I'm thinking that you have to do something different every time. So for example, start on a new note, use different rhythms, use different intervals that you're jumping around with, and simply try to do something completely different from the previous melody you just made. This is a hell of a lot of different things that I think that you will really gain a lot from doing. If you have any questions, then call me or write a mail to me. And if any viewers have any questions to why or what I mean, then write in the comments and I will explain. This is the first time I've ever done this and I feel extremely insecure about doing this because I don't know how this is received or what people think about this. For me, this is about trying to make you do something new so you get to be more creative. It's just like being on vacation in a new country. Going to the supermarket is, like, for me at least, really exciting because I haven't been there before. There are new items everywhere. I'm simply intrigued by going there. When I go to my local shop, it's like I know everything that's there and I know where it is, and therefore I just stop watching with my full attention unless I give myself a task that forces me to really focus. For example, if I need to find an item that I have never used before, then my eyes suddenly start to look everywhere and gets the idea to like, oh, if I pick this, then I could do this and this and this and this. And this is the same thing I hope that could happen with this feedback. I tell you to do something that it sounds like you're not doing. So you will need to actually really be focused on doing this. And when focused, realizing some new ways of working. Not because you're going to work just like I am, but because when you're starting to get creative and focus, then you will find your own ways. If you like the music, then go and check out his Facebook page, Yui June. I will make a link in the description. And if you want feedback for your music, then there is a link in the description where you can submit for Feedback Fridays. If you have any feedback for me to how I do this, then please let me know, because I really, really would like to make this the best experience for everybody. And if you like this video, then please hit the thumbs up button and consider to subscribe to my channel. Enjoy.